Peace. So one of the main talking points of this society today is this bathroom bill. And the funny thing about the so-called bathroom bill is that they're making a huge deal about it over the policy that one state has about requiring quote unquote transgender people to go to the bathroom that's on their birth certificate. Well, the funny thing is that, as we all know, when you go to the bathroom, a public bathroom, there's not somebody at the door of the public bathroom asking you for your birth certificate. So the bill really, or the protest by the liberals against the policy that the state like North Carolina or Texas, that they're trying to implement, the issue is really not for the liberals about the transgenders. The issue is that they want to have cross-dressers be able to go to whatever bathroom they want, because as we know, assuming that you have the surgery to cross over to another gender and you're administered the hormones, no one should be able to tell that you were formerly a male or female. So really, what is the issue about? It can't be about people being stopped from going to whatever bathroom they want based off of what gender they used to be. The issue must be about allowing cross-dressers to go into whatever bathroom they want and pedophiles to go into whatever bathroom they want. Like I told you before, the real end game is pedophilia and pederasty. So let's see how they cover this story.
North Carolina lawmakers this morning, they're going to take their first vote on repealing the state's controversial bathroom bill. This is the bill that requires transgender people to use the bathroom that matches the gender on their birth certificate. Well,
like I already stated, there's nobody there at the door of the bathroom asking you for your birth certificate whenever you go to the bathroom. So what these liberals are mad about cannot possibly be that people are being stopped from going to whatever bathroom they want.
Certificate. Well, this morning, this so-called deal is not quieting critics who say it's really a repeal in name only. Nick Valencia is following it all for us. So LGBTQ rights groups are up in arms. They're upset. They don't see this as a deal at all.
Well, you know this, Poppy. This has been a bitterly contested issue in the state of North Carolina for the past year between state Democrats and state Republicans. It's being called a vote to repeal House Bill 2, but it is anything but. The one good thing that it does do for trans community in North Carolina.
How can you have a trans community? Can somebody explain that to me? How can you have a trans community? A community is based off of culture. What culture do those people have other than a communal aspect of a gender identity disorder and mental disorder? How can they be a community? Do they all have one place in the city that they live in? When you say that this is a black community, quote unquote, or a quote unquote white community, or a quote unquote Asian community, those are people who live together and share the same culture, right? Whatever that culture may be. Sometimes it's a culture in word only. But that's what a community is. Do transgender people all live in the same portion of the city? We all know that the answer to that is no. So they cannot have they cannot have a community. All right.
Carolina, allows them to choose the bathroom of their choice based on their gender identity. But some in the LGBTQ community say this goes even further in discriminating them by putting a 4-year moratorium on non-discrimination ordinances. Now, the state is in charge of that. There's no local protections, something that transgender activists really wanted. I spoke to the leading transgender activist in the state of North Carolina, Candace Cox, who said...
The leading transgender activist name is Candace Cox. Yeah, I bet.
Who says that this new legislation would strip any protections that the transgender people in North Carolina ever had.
You really are leaving transgender people.
Look at this craziness. He there walking down the street with a damn Yeti.
People as prey to any form of discrimination. Wrongful termination from employment, hate crimes. We have to now argue that in state courts again because there's no definition as to who you can or cannot discriminate against when we're talking about gender identity at the state level, and you want to take it away from the cities as well.
Someone should ask that person if they were molested as a child. I will guarantee you that the answer is yes. This is where society is going, catering to people with mental disorders. All right? This is why I stay on the so-called liberal movement. This is why I stay on it. There are a lot of idiots and slow-brained people who try to accuse me of being so-called conservative. Right? I don't align myself with any branch of this societal structure whatsoever. You know, as you may call it, you know, whatever movement. I don't align myself to any of those movements. Right? I just make sure that I stay aware and astute as to what's going on. But it's normally the so-called left or so-called liberals that are trying to push all of these societal engineering reforms. And they all rotate around the destruction of the so-called male. If you pay attention, if you notice, feminism, the homosexual movement, the transgender movement are all assaults against the male. All right?
Now, there's something very interesting happening in North Carolina this morning. There is a split between the more progressive, left-leaning Democrats and the more moderate ones. We understand within the last hour, those more progressive voices within the Democratic Party met with Governor Roy Cooper to try to convince him to revoke his support for this House Bill 2 repeal vote.
Let's see here. The North Carolina Bathroom Bill Agreement repeals law requiring people to use bathroom corresponding with gender, leaves regulation of bathrooms under state control until 2020, prevents local governments from passing their own anti-discrimination regulations. So you know what's interesting? Like I said before, the issue is not transgender people being able to go into whatever bathroom they currently identify with. The issue is them having or enabling people to go into whatever bathroom they choose prior to the surgery, all right, prior to the hormone treatment. So in other words, some guy can wake up today and say, you know what, I feel like a woman today, and go into the bathroom and take a piss next to your child, right? Some guy who's 6'3", 230 pounds, and calls himself Peaches can go to the bathroom next to a lot of you females out there. Most of you females are so-called liberals. He can go in there and he can cop a squat right next to you. All right. Now, when he decides that he's going to transform back into a man while he's in that bathroom stall, and then he gets up and kicks down the door of the stall that you're in and decides to take whatever you have, just remember this bill. All right.
Vote. We have to remind our viewers, Poppy, just how close of a win it was for Governor Roy Cooper in his bid for that governorship against Pat McCrory. He won by the slimmest of margins, and a lot of that had to do with the support that he was getting from the LGBTQ community based on his campaign promise that he would fully repeal House Bill 2. This is anything but a full repeal, and he's not keeping up with his promises, according to those transgender activists. We expect this to be a very close vote in the state legislature later this morning.
And
Poppy.
look, the state took such a huge financial hit, Nick, from so many businesses pulling out. You know, the All-Star game pulled out when it comes to the NBA. I mean,
Yes, the All-Star game pulled out because they were led by the homosexual commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver, allegedly homosexual. Right? That's why. That's what they do to these cities, these states, and these municipalities that don't want to follow behind their quote-unquote their aggressive progressive movements. We're gonna starve you out economically, right? We're gonna create basically corporate embargoes against you. We're gonna make you submit to our pro-homosexual and pro-transgender will, because that's what the so-called liberals do, right? If you don't agree with us, you're stupid, and if you're stupid, you deserve to suffer. Right? Eventually, this is going to cause a backlash. And what the so-called liberals would do, just like a bully does, you know, when a bully keeps messing with you, there's no way to negotiate with a bully. You have to break a brick over his head. And once you do that, you know what he's going to say? Wow, why are you taking this so serious? See, when people start to lash back at these so-called liberals that want to force themselves and their ways on other people, they're going to act like they don't know why there is such an aggressive backlash. People are getting tired of being told what to think and how to live. They're getting tired of that. Now they want to enable cross-dressers to go to whatever bathroom they choose. All right.
NBA, I mean, they lost so much. Are they going to need a full repeal of this to really be able to bring that revenue back in?
Well, the short answer is no. They just need the
All these people here are witches. Maroon 5, Demi Lovato, Bruce Springsteen, Pearl Jam. All these so-called rock performance artists, they're all witches. They all practice witchcraft. All right, believe it or not. They can't get signed onto major labels unless they're already practicing witches. Right? Some people might scoff at that, but that is the truth. All right? There was a man named John Todd, I believe his name was. He was a Caucasian man who in the 1970s, he outed the practices in the record industry. He stated that all the major actors on television and movies and in the record industry, they're all practicing witches. All right? Meaning they all worship the god Pan. They practice pansexuality, bisexuality. That's why they take things like this so personally. Like I told you before, that's all this all is about, is the worship of the god Pan. That's why you'll see the inverted pentagram all the time and things and the veneration of the goat. All right? Pay attention when you watch commercials. You'll always see that they venerate and they always throw goats in these commercials.
They just need the optics that the state is doing enough to try to take steps forward in allowing transgender people to use the bathroom of their choice. There's estimates that put this loss financially for the state of North Carolina in the billions of dollars. There's been estimates from the local level that this is hundreds of millions of dollars that it's cost the state. This is a bitterly contested issue, Poppy, and it's going to be a very close vote from what we understand from congressmen we've been speaking to this morning. This vote expected to happen about 11 a.m. Eastern. Poppy.
Nick, thank you for the reporting for us. Coming up in the House, bipartisanship non-existent.
Yeah, whatever. So anyway, let's continue on. All right, so now we saw how the so-called regular media covered the bathroom bill, quote-unquote bathroom bill. Now let's see how the sports media decides to cover the bathroom bill. Pay very close attention to the tactic that Stephen A. Smith uses in covering the bathroom bill, or this topic itself. Watch how reticent he is to be boisterous as he normally is.
North Carolina lawmakers are close to coming to an agreement to fix or repeal the HB2 law that requires individuals to use the public facilities of their birth gender. So this controversial law caused the NBA to move this year's All-Star game and the NCAA to move the ACC men's basketball tournament out of the state. Today was the deadline set by the NCAA for North Carolina to fix the law, or they would not allow the state to host NCAA championship events through 2022. Will Kane, back with us. We'll get your thoughts in just a moment. Max, what's your reaction to this news?
Now let's see what the liberal Caucasian man has to say. You see, he already has a silly smirk on his face. Why is that? Because he's just going to say something that he really doesn't even believe himself, but he has to play a role. Keep in mind, Max Kellerman is a practicing Jew, meaning what? He keeps the Talmud. If you ever Google him and his wife, you'll see that he's walking down the street and his wife has on an ankle-length skirt. All right. And yet everything that comes out of his mouth is allow it. Go for it. Let's do it. That's how the Caucasian Jew liberal. That's what they do. That's how they practice what they practice. They want everybody else to do whatever the hell they want while they maintain a rather conservative lifestyle.
Well, it's very good news in the sense that you see what the NBA did and what other businesses have done, reacting to the bill the way they did, to the law, the idea of the law the way they did, has actually affected change. Because in spite of what Republican lawmakers said, it's not hurting the economy. There was an AP study that found it's going to be almost $4 billion worth of hurt economy over the next 12 years. And so that spooked them, and now they haven't repealed it, they've replaced it with another bill of which critics claim does the same thing that the original bill did, more or less. But it does show you the power that, and what Adam Silver has done is, by the way, as commissioner of the NBA, and the power of businesses to affect social change. When we discussed this originally, I said bravo to the NBA, and I still say that today, even though, once again, they're going to replace it, apparently, they'd like to, with something just as onerous to those.
How can it be just as onerous? They're going to replace it with a bill that's going to satisfy the people who voted in the previous bill. Right? The same people who decided that they did not want cross-dressers to be in the bathroom with themselves or with their children. Right? That's what people who are mentally stable do. That's what they do.
Who were were against the bill in the first place, and now we'll see what the reaction to that is. But at the very least, it shows you that the business boycotts have forced lawmakers there to say, oh, no, we didn't mean it. We'll take it back, replace it with something very similar, but at least maybe you'll bring your business back. It flies in the face of what they said originally.
Well, listen, I'm going to sit up here and I'll let Will have the last word on this, because I'll openly confess, Max and Will, I kind of need help with this because...
You see how this dude is? Stephen A. Simp. You see how this guy is? When it comes to, and I've told you guys before, when it comes to this, to the hierarchy of Western society, particularly in the liberal media, the hierarchy is black male, black female, female in general, homosexual, transgender, right? That's the order from lowest to top in the liberal hierarchy. All right. The highest being so-called pederasty. All right. The so-called white man, he operates outside of that hierarchy. He operates outside of it because even though he may get lampooned every once in a while as the image of the so-called oppressor, he still can, he's like the king. People throw rocks at the throne. He gets hit with them, but he's still ruling. But you see how this guy, Stephen A. Simp, you see how he backed up? All of a sudden he needs help. So that's code word for, you know what, you two white guys, you guys banter about this issue. I'm not comfortable speaking on transgenderism because I know my place.
Because as a black man, certainly it's something that I would normally condone. Protest has obviously been a part of my community's history. We've had to protest a lot of different things.
Being pawned out is a part of our people's history, particularly in the last 60 years, especially. All right. That's what protests are. That's being pawned out. Right. You don't see Asians protest for the most part. You know why? Because they have a strong culture and a strong community economy. Right. They tell politicians what to do. They don't beg them.
Things and what have you. And as it pertains to this bathroom issue, certainly when, corporations and in this case, leagues, the NCAA, the NBA, multi-billion-dollar establishments gets involved, that's going to have some kind of profound impact. We recognize that. It's just that with this particular issue in regards to the bathroom bill, I have to confess that I'm not sure it was necessary for the NCAA to take the position that it took. I'm not sure it was necessary for the NBA to take the position that it took.
Now, the reason why he's saying that is because in his heart, as a quote unquote black man, as he's fond to say, in his heart, he knows that what the upper echelon of this society is doing is wrong. Right? They're basically extorting the state of North Carolina. They're basically telling them, look, you're going to either get down or you're going to lay down. We're going to starve you out if you do not accept our quote unquote progressive agenda. That's what they do. They put terms on what they're doing to make it look like they're the good guys. This is a progressive agenda. We're progressing because the term progress means change for the better. Right? It just doesn't mean change. It means change for the better. So they put those type of slogans on what they do to make you look like a quote unquote Neanderthal if you reject it. But he knows better. That's why he said that it wasn't necessary what's going on, because he sees that they're pretty much getting choked out. But we're going to continue on part 2. Peace.